Hello, I'm Paul Race and welcome to my workshop. Today's project is not as strange and busy as I thought it was going to be. What I have here is a guitar I gave to my daughter back in the 1980s when she was first learning to play guitar. She kept it for several years, took it off to college, and took it off to her first 3 or 4 apartments. And one of the times when she moved, pretty much everything she had came home, and the guitar kind of stayed with us for a while. And I just wanted to be sure it was ready for her when I sent it back to her. This is a unusual guitar. This is a very shallow-bodied applause guitar that I bought for her years ago. A few years after I bought my first Ovation. I have an Ovation Legend that was my first Legend, and the sucker would stay in tune. It was very solid. I was so pleased with it. I thought, well, even their student models can't be too bad. And I bought it for her because the guitar she was using was really pretty much a piece of junk. And I thought, well, this will be a good guitar for her. They're nice and solid. You can say what you want about the fiberglass body, but let's just point out that that's a part that never fails on these guitars, even the cheap ones. And I thought, well, okay, this would be a good guitar to for her to take. Now it doesn't have an obvious adjustment rod access here on the neck. The adjustment rod access is actually here. And when I got this out of the case, after probably not being played for 10 years, I figured it would need all kinds of adjustment and tuning. In fact, I have my handy Allen wrench set here, and in case it's not the right ones, I also have a set that includes metric. Guess what? Well, I took it out of the case and played a couple notes on it. It was almost in tune. Now, I am going to put new strings on it for her and clean it up before I send it back. But I just thought that was very interesting, because here's a guitar that was probably a $150 guitar back in the 80s, maybe a $200 guitar. And when I first got it for her, I did the setup thing. I adjusted that. I put on new strings, and lo and behold, it's holding its pitch. Not only is it holding its pitch, but it sounds significantly better than it did when I first got it out of the box when it was new. So I just thought I'd share that with you. This particular guitar has an interesting arrangement. It has a pickup and a plug on the back, right? So you can take this to your open mics or whatever and plug in. It has a volume and tone control, but it has just a piezoelectric pickup and no battery, no preamp, anything like that. So if you were to take this any place and need to plug it into the PA, you might find out that you needed more gain than the PA guy would ordinarily be able to give you. That's not a problem. Having a preamp on the floor or a belt pack or something like that isn't really a terrible thing to have to deal with. And I have to say this, that the original Ovations, which had a battery thing in here, that you had to loosen the strings to change the batteries. Frankly, that was a royal piece of, it was not well designed. And so I'm actually not dissatisfied with this at all. And plugged in, it doesn't sound that bad. I realize that in the intervening 40 years, there have been many improvements in built-in pickups. Some of them even have little condenser mics in that face the face of the guitar and provide a more realistic tone and better frequency response. That said, this guitar will still serve the purpose for which it was intended. And I tell you, I wouldn't mind if I was called somewhere to play at the last minute. I wouldn't mind using the guitar at all. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the strings off. Well, maybe I'll tune it first and make sure that when it's completely tuned up, the action is as good as it is now, because right now it's pretty good. I don't have a strap, so I have to do this. But see, hang on. it's not great, I lied. The action could be better up the neck. Down here, it's great. James Gang there. It's not bad. I could adjust to that. I may wind up adjusting it just a little bit once I tune it up if the action is significantly worse. So we'll see. I will come back in a few. Okay, so here's the deal. I tuned it up. I went to tune it, and it turned out that it was about 2 cents high across the guitar. So it actually, in the several years that it has not been played, it has actually kept its tune a whole lot better than you would expect. A little closer to being in tune now, but regarding the action up the neck, it is playable up here. I have to say that the person who is going to be playing this guitar will not be playing it up the neck. And the other thing that I discovered while I was messing with it is that when I sight down the edge the way you would sight down an arrow, there is a very, very slight bow along this edge, and this edge is completely straight. What that means is that you can only monkey with the neck like that so much. And since it's in playable condition, I may tweak it just a little. We'll see. But it is interesting to me that for the age of this instrument, it has kept its tune this well and kept this quality. My Legends have something that this one doesn't. This has a one-piece neck. Now, it does have an adjustment rod in the neck, which is pretty much standard on steel string guitars these days, but it still only has a one-piece neck. So it is, after whatever it's been, 35 or so years since this guitar was first built, it has shifted out of whack just a tiny bit. It's a whole lot more playable than most of the other guitars of its cost in its price range would have been at this point. That said, I am going to try to tweak it just a little bit and see if I can improve the action on the higher frets without causing any major catastrophes. So that will require some detuning, and will require taking an Allen wrench to this little guy here and just seeing if it will make a difference. So I'll be back. Okay, one thing you check for, by the way, I had to go through several different Allen wrenches before I found one. I detuned it enough, especially I detuned all the strings. I detuned the middle two strings so I could get the wrench in the little hole, and I took it about 1/4 of a turn, tightened. And ironically, when I was detuning, the G string broke. So I don't have a perfect example of how it would sound or whatever, but I did. The action seems better. Of course, the G string isn't on it, but the other thing that you check for when you tighten that is you check for fret buzz, and you go all the way up. I go at least up to an octave. Once you get beyond that, it's usually very rare that you would have fret buzz. Hear that A string? If I play B flat, if I play the first fret on the A string, it just has a whisper of buzz. The D, let's see, the D string has a whisper of buzz too. Now if I'm fretted heavily, it's not a problem, but there it is. So what I will not do is tighten this neck anymore. When I put the new strings on, if I still have that issue, I will actually loosen it back down a little bit just to get rid of that. It's not heinous. And none of them none of them buzz when it's open, but that is something I will take a look at when I restring it. The next thing I will do, this is the fun part, right? This is what you get to do at the airport when you travel with a guitar, is you tune all the strings, detune all the strings. And then you wonder why you need new strings every time you get off the airplane. The answer is that this is miserable on a string. So I'm going to detune it completely, and then I'm going to take the strings off, and I'm going to treat the neck. So that's the next step. You don't need to watch me taking the strings off. Basically, it's not so hard if they've been put on properly. Now, some people like to do funky little things like stick the string through the little hole twice. Makes them harder to get off. Somebody has tied this one into a knot. I'm not sure who did that, but it'll take me a little bit of time to get these off, and there's no point wasting your time. Ordinarily, if the strings are put on properly, just literally loosening them will give you enough ability to just simply pull it up to the head and then pull it off. There's some complications here. When you have a guitar that's been strung by amateurs, you never know what's going to be tied together or looped around at that end. So I will do that on my own, and then I will come back. Some 20 hours have elapsed since I saw you last. In the meantime, I took the strings off, I polished the face of the guitar, and I used a product that's called Guitar Honey, that does a really nice job of re-moisturizing the fingerboard, which is what it's designed for. This particular fingerboard is probably rosewood. Most of them are rosewood or some similar wood. It's very moisture resistant, but nevertheless, over a period of 20 years, it can lose some moisture. So I used the Guitar Honey on it. I also used some Guitar Honey on the bridge, and then of course I made enough of a mess I had to do a really good job of polishing the guitar. There's also some gunk on here that I don't understand what it was. It took me a while to get it off, but I cleaned it and polished it. By the way, you may not be able to hear it on the recording, but there is a cricket of some sort in the workshop today, and it keeps chirping. So at first I thought, well, that is the weirdest tinnitus I've ever had in my life, but it wasn't tinnitus at all. Instead, it was a cricket doing its thing. Strings I'm going to use are Martin Phosphor Bronze. They are not the best strings. They're not even my favorite strings, but they're the strings I use on most guitars that I'm just testing. If I use the same string on every guitar, then I can say, well, this guitar has a better tone than that guitar. Whereas if I randomly choose different kinds of strings, then that doesn't really help me at all. I'm going to start, just for illustration, I usually will start with the outside strings and work my way in. Once again, without the bridge pins, in order to get the string to go into the little hole and come up out of the little hole where it's supposed to, you notch it just a little bit there. It's not it's hard to see probably, but there it is. Okay, so I notch it just a little bit. I stick it in the hole, and lo and behold, it comes out the other hole. That's a lovely sound, isn't it? In the movie That Thing You Do, there's an argument that takes place while one of the members of the band is restringing his guitar, and you have that sound over and over again, and it adds to the tension of the scene. I don't think people do not like the sound of a piano tuning, but I don't know anybody that likes the sound of a guitar being restrung either. Now let's see if I can turn this the other way. Now obviously, if you've played guitar more than a day and a half, you know which way the strings are supposed to be tightened. I'm going to be shoving this string up through the hole, and knowing that I'm going to be tightening it a certain way, what I do is, once I get it started, I don't know if you can see there, and then I start tightening it. Okay, so the string is starting to get some tension there. Now you see I've left slack, maybe too much slack, but at least I want a little bit more, so that when I finally wrap the string around the peg, there'll be a couple loops at least. Okay, so tightening again. Now you see once it does this, you can pinch it like so, and create a little crease there in the string, and another bend on the other side. Do you see that? So that's the magic. That's all you really have to do to keep guitar strings in place, even the little bitty ones. It's easier to demonstrate with a big fat one, but if you see that, I've bent it where it goes in, I've bent it where it comes out, and that will provide enough tension that once I roll several more. I have to confess, these aren't my favorite tuners ever. But once I get several loops of the guitar string around the head, most of the tension will be absorbed by the loops and not by my little kinks in the string, and that way it'll be secure. And you won't have to take a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, like I did to get the strings off of this and untangle the strings, because that's what I had to do. That's one reason I did not show myself unstringing this instrument, because it was bizarre. There were literally knots in some of the strings around the head, and they had to be cut apart. One of them was quite Gordian. So that said, now the string's getting a little bit of tension on it. It's not exactly where it needs to be, but it's a start. And typically what I will do is I'll take the other E string and work from the other side. Once I have most of the strings on and I'm secure that everything's going the way I want it to, I will begin cutting the excess off of these. I'm going to do this right now just as an example. So you see I've got excess string here. Now sometimes guitar players, to be cool, will skip this step and they'll wrap the strings around so that there's this big tangle up here and it looks really cool, and that way everybody in the audience knows they just restrung their guitar, and that makes them special. That's silly, but then I've known guitar players who did that, and then 6 weeks later they still have the same set of strings on. They've played 300 concerts and they've never bothered restringing. So once I cut it, I also take the pliers and I notch it down towards the face of the peg head here, and the reason for that is just to keep the wires from snagging people or poking people as the life goes on. What do you do with the excess wire? Well, this is a hard question. This wire, if it falls on the floor, you'll be able to see because it's got the windings on it. The guitar strings without windings on them, when they fall on the floor, it gets real crazy and it's very hard to find. So I always make certain that I dispose of the old strings and also of the excess part of the strings like this, and dispose of them immediately. That's all I'm going to say about stringing the guitar for now. I'm going to come back in a little while when I have it all strung and do some preliminary tuning on it. As I finish the last string here, which happens to be the G string, ironically that's the one that broke when I was detuning the guitar to check its setup yesterday. Again, I feed this through the little hole on the bottom of the bridge. I've kinked it so that the string will come up. The string comes up, lo and behold, I fish it through. Now this G string happens to be wound. It's very finely wound. I prefer a wound G string. I think they hold their tune better. Once again, I will be sticking it through the head, through the peg head. There's a little hole in the peg head. I stick it through. I pull it up so it's reasonably pulled up. See, there's quite a bit of slack there. I don't need that much slack. I pull it up a little more. Okay, now I kink it going in, and I kink it where it comes out. and then I begin tightening it. And I also like to keep the loose part up above the part that's being wound. A reason for that is sometimes if the windings go up above where this is coming out, they wind up being too close to the top of the peg. And if you bump it, it'll actually come back off, and that's not a very good thing. One reason I went ahead and turn this back on is because I forgot to tell you something very important about tuning a guitar, or even detuning a guitar, as I did yesterday. And that is, always when you're putting strings on a guitar or taking strings off of a guitar or anything of that nature, always wear safety glasses. Now you look at me and you say, well, he's not wearing safety glasses. You have no idea how thick these lenses would be if they weren't one of those expensive polycarbonate things. Once again, I have the leftover here. I'm going to snap it with my handy wire. If you don't have a pair of these, I don't know how you change guitar strings. That said, after 9/11, several guitar players got in trouble for having a pair of these in their carry-on luggage. So if you fly with your guitar, do what you can to keep your tools in the check luggage. And if you don't have check luggage, I don't know what you do, because flying with guitars is a pain in the neck anyway. Once again, I'm going to take this wire and wrap it up a little so that it doesn't spring out and maybe make holes in the trash bag and eventually scratch somebody's leg as they're taking the trash out. So this is me pitching it. Now, for preliminary tuning, I like to use a piano, and actually have a piano built into my workbench here, so that's not as crazy as it seems. If you have a digital tuner and you're way out of tune, sometimes it's hard to get started on where you need to be. So this will be my low E, and you don't have to be too precise, because when I tighten the other strings up, the neck will draw up a little bit and the first strings will go flat. E, hear that? It's already gone flat. A, now I'm going to work on a D. Sounds a little buzzy, doesn't it? Remember, the neck is coming forward with every string I tighten. This is the G. Kind of close. Overshot that one. And here's a high E. By the way, learning to tune by ear is a fantastic skill to have. You never know when you're going to join, be asked to sit in with somebody and their guitar is a quarter step low, and if all you can tune by is a digital tuner, then you're just going to be out of luck. There are other things other parts of tuning by ear that are also interesting and useful, and I won't do that in this video. Remember, I had a little bit of fret buzz there and there. That is still there. That said, once the guitar has been restrung, the neck had the tension off the neck, but now the tension is back on the neck. It'll still take it a day or so to really settle in. Like I said, if you have a professional guitar, it's not going to be so bad. Okay, I'm going to turn this thing off just a minute and tune it to a digital tuner now that I've got it somewhere in the ballpark. And actually, I've got a digital tuner over there on the bench, but I'm going to use Guitar Tuna, which is an application anybody can download. So I'll see you in a second. They keep adding features, and it keeps taking longer and longer to boot. One of the nice features that they added recently was the ability to use this to tune a guitar or a banjo or a bass, and you have a little selection but link on the left side there. So I actually used it to tune a bass the other day, and it worked very well. So Guitar Tuna, spelled like the fish, Guitartuna. I have Snarks and similar products all over the place, but I always have my cell phone with me, so you never know. So real quickly, says I'm 4 cents flat, says I'm dead on. 4 cents flat. Almost dead on. It's really 2 cents flat. Dead on. Dead on. Sounds a little wonky, but I think it's dead on. Alrighty. So, having cleaned up, the action really is better up here, up the neck. I don't want to embarrass myself by getting too crazy with it. Drop D tuning, you didn't hear that. Good, really. Ah, not so good. It's going to be good enough for the people who are likely to be using this and playing mostly in records. And anybody is serious about playing up the neck, they'll be able to do it, although it still may take a little bit of adjustment. Once again, I didn't bring the neck action down any farther than I did because of that very slight buzz on the D string. You can barely hear it now, and it'll probably a week from now I could crank the neck back another quarter of a turn, and it would just be fine. That's where I'm going to leave it now. So after this, I'm going to wipe down the case. I'm going to put this in the case. I'm going to add a strap, a capo, and some picks, and she will be ready to go. I hope that you've enjoyed this and that it does, at least it gives you some ideas. Once again, you don't necessarily need to have a $3,000 guitar to be able to play in open mics and jam sessions in your bedroom or any place else except perhaps a recording studio. And even there, you'd be surprised what you can do if you've got a guitar, even an expensive guitar that's been properly taken care of and set up. I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy your music and enjoy any time you have with your friends and family.